Like the sun when it comes up from the city, from the rooftops. 'Cause today's gonna be my day. I just wanna climb to the top of a mountain, stand tall when I'm howling. 'Cause today's gonna be my day, it's gonna be my day. Good night stress, see you in the morning. I don't gotta guess, you're always there for me. Sowing them seeds of doubt, I think you like seeing me freak out. Good night stress, see you in the morning. So I wake up, I get out of bed, stay up, stay out of my head 'cause it's dangerous, and I don't wanna lose my mind, no. I just wanna shine like the sun when it comes up, love the city from the rooftops, 'cause today's gonna be my day. I just wanna fly.
All right, folks. So thank you for joining along on a wonderful Tuesday evening, guys. Always gracious and just so blessed that you guys get to show up here every single day, and I get the opportunity to have a conversation with you guys, be a part of this community and the awesome people who come here who, contribute all the time, even by putting comments out into the chat, man. That's a pretty big thing. And I'm always, again, very appreciative of everybody showing up here. So thank you again, guys, so much. So let's get started with this evening's guest. And just a real quick reminder tomorrow, guys, there is no guest on tomorrow. Tomorrow will be episode number 100 of season 2. So I'm going to take that day for me and just share a few thoughts about season 2 and the whole journey and how that has worked out, for a second time. This is the second time I've done 100 episodes. So that'll be pretty cool to cover tomorrow. And, and I'm pretty thrilled. And, again, it'll be the middle of the week too. It'll be hump week, right? Why not? So, all right, guys, now that we got this out of the way, let's get going. Thank you, everybody who's been watching in the chat, guys. Awesome so much. Checking us out on our Twitch channel. Hello, Ginger Badger. What's up, my friend? Jackie's over there. And then, of course, we got G-Han in the house. G, what is up, guys? Thank you so much for popping in and saying hello. So what is up, man? Yes. Hoodie. What's on your hoodie, dude? Nothing's on my hoodie, I don't think. Me. Or hopefully me. I don't know. We'll check that out later. All right, so let's get started with this evening's guest, guys. I hopefully you guys will be pretty impressed with my guest this evening. We're gonna talk a lot of things about her journey and a lot of things that she's doing now. So we'll touch on a few things. We're going to talk about mental health, financial, occupational, the things we love to talk about here. Heck, we'll even talk about God. Woo, there's the word. We'll cover that in there. That's okay, guys. We talk about everything here. We don't hold nothing back. So let me get started and pull in this evening's guest, guys. Please give me a warm round of applause for our guest this evening, guys, for her taking the time to come on here and have a chat with us. So thank you, guys, again, for all of the wonderful comments. And let's bring into the show, guys, Miss Julie Van Orden.
Hi, how
There
are
she
you?
is. How are you, Julie? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, number one, for taking the time to come and be on the show and share a little bit about your journey and everything else. I love people who take the opportunity, because you were one of the ones that I said, hey, would you like to come on? And you said, yes, let's do that. And then let me change this real quick. So you can be Julie and I can be me. There we go. Okay.
Did we have the wrong names?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it does that whenever I reset it. So see if I can, and then I can always change it back, and you can be me, I can be you.
I'll be Gabe.
Fun stuff. So, all right, let's get started. Now, one of the things that we'll talk about, and we'll go into your journey a little bit more, but you are a wellness professional, right?
Yes.
You spend your time in helping other people, kind of formulate and develop um, their own paths into helping change their lives, right? So it's more than just losing weight, right? There's so much more to it when you're talking about, I mean, because I love the word wellness professional. That can be all encompassing for a lot of things, you know. So why don't we talk about that and how you actually got into doing that as a profession?
Well, so I am a little bit different than a lot of the people that I know or see in my profession online that they're wellness coaches, and I am not a wellness coach. I am a program manager for wellness, and I also do consulting with companies and that want to create wellness programming. And I have a full-time job in that arena with a major institution. But I've been in the business for about 30 years. And then I also do training and I do some individual mentoring when reached out for wellness. So how I got into this field, it's really very interesting in that I love to talk, and I thought that meant that I needed to be a broadcaster. So I thought, oh, I want to be on TV and I want to talk. And so I went to school to be in broadcasting. And while I was in school in my undergraduate program, I had some struggles with my mental health and I quit school for a short period of time. And when I went back, I had a transformation and I needed to go back and transform also where I was going with that. And so I started to I got my undergraduate degree in health science or public health. And because I drank the wellness Kool-Aid, I actually had drank the wellness Kool-Aid. I like to say that when I was younger, when I was in my teens. But when I started to get ready to go to school, I didn't know you could like major in anything related to health and prevention. I was just thinking, I like to talk, I want to be a broadcaster. So I went to this transformation, another transformation while I was in college, and came back and started getting my health degree. And then I ended up getting a master's in health administration. But one of the things that I do, I use a model. I use the multidimensional model of wellness, and a lot of people. You mentioned a lot of people think about it's more. It's that you mentioned it's more than just fitness and nutrition.
Hmm.
It really is. A lot of times people think about wellness as if they think holistically, they think mind, body, and spirit. But
Hmm.
actually, wellness goes much deeper than
Oh
that, and
yeah.
it is a multi-dimensional model. There are hundreds probably out there, but I usually stick to the national models, and then I developed my own, which is a take on the national model. But then we can talk about that later if we get to it. But you know, I subscribe to the 8 dimensions of wellness, and they are physical,
Hmm.
financial,
Yes.
mental,
Yes.
environmental, which is
Oh,
different than what you might think it is,
yes.
occupational, intellectual, which is very similar and close to occupational, but a little different, social, and spiritual wellness.
Oh.
So that's a lot. But
Ooh.
what's cool about having a lot of different dimensions of wellness, what they are is they encompass your total life. And the
Mm.
cool thing about that is it gives you 8 places to have a win instead of just one physical. Or if you add mind, body, spirit, that's 3 places to have a win. If you can get a win in one of those 8, it can start a domino effect and start to affect all the other dimensions of wellness to where you become really a person who has well-being, not just wellness, but a whole posture of well-being.
Yes. That is
That's a lot, right? Listen, I'm a wellness nerd. 30 years
no,
in
hey,
this.
no, 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 no. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm pretty sure this skill set has come in handy big time this last year. I mean, how many people were going through so many of those things when you break them down because of the whole COVID thing and trying to figure out their lives, and then people again wanting to change, how they operate because they were, for a lot of people, they were forced into change for the first time in a very long time. staying at home, working from home, having to do all of these things. And for a lot of people, I'm pretty sure it opened up their thought processes to say, you know what, if I have to change this, maybe I can change something else in my life,
Yeah.
and for the better.
Yeah, I really put our backs against the wall. That's the polite way of saying it, but it really did. It put our backs against the wall, and we either, many of us are still working with it. Oh my gosh, you talked about vision board. I see Teresa talking about
Yeah.
that. My book, if you finish my book, it's 10 chapters, and by the time you're done, you've got a vision board. But anyway,
Ooh,
or at least you have your goals,
hey.
depending on how you want to do it. But really, I mean, right now, there are still folks going through it, through their wellness, and there are folks that had to adjust. They found out, well, they got laid off or they couldn't go back to work, and so they had to rethink their occupation. And so that's what wellness is about. When things aren't you know that you're enjoying well-being when something goes wrong in one of those 8 dimensions and the floor doesn't fall out from under you. If the
Mm,
floor starts to slip out from under you, you know you got to do something to pull yourself up, because well-being is a posture of your heart, your attitude, your beliefs, so that when things are great, you're not throwing caution to the wind and just like, okay, I'm invincible. You're steady. And when things are not great, you're like, okay, this is a season, it's going to pass. And you can stay steady and stay encouraged. And then when things are just regular, you're just chugging along and feeling really a lot of joy and a lot of, I think confidence and
hmm
comfort and contentment. I think that's the word I'm thinking
There
of.
you go.
Contentment.
Contentment. That's a good one. That's a good one to actually use. Because like kind of like what you've been laying out, I feel that when you kind of work and concentrate on all of those, pillars, right? You work
Mhm.
on them and you really build them up. If one of them slips, you still have the other seven that you've kind of said, you know what, I've been successful in these other ones. You can, at that point, you can kind of evaluate and go, what was the one thing that I didn't do with this one? And maybe I can draw experiences from the other seven successes or five, however many it is that you've had, to kind of say, you know what, I need to adjust something. There's something that maybe I need to do. And, you can actually, you pull from something you've already been doing and things you've already been learning and instilling in your life to say, you know what, um, just kind of like what you were alluding to, the whole confidence thing about building it gives you that ability to say, you know what, I might have not done it to this point, but you know what, I'm still pretty confident in that I can get it done. Let me see if I've been doing something wrong. Let me reach out, whatever it is that they need to do to kind of get those back into a nice balance, because it's the whole thing about it. At some point, you want to have a really good balance of
Yeah.
all of those things. Now, I know it's very hard to kind of maintain them all the time, but what are some of the things that you kind of coach or teach somebody to say, hey, look, these are things that you can probably use in your everyday life to help maintain those things. Once you achieve something, it's okay to achieve it, but it's even harder to say, now how do I learn to maintain it, so it becomes the lifestyle choice that I instill every day instead of the option of the choice. It becomes the routine, the automatic, the thing that you've built in there. You've spent all this time in investing in yourself and reprogramming your mind to get to that point. So, what are some of the things that you coach to people who um, reach that achievement? Right? I mean, that's the whole thing about it. You reach the dream, but what do you do afterwards? So, this is what I'm kind of alluding to. I love to hear people talk about these sort of things.
Well, I think one of the things that you touched on, you mentioned that, you talked about maybe not having total balance all the time. And I think the first thing, it's really important for folks. I mean, I've literally had this conversation within the last 2 weeks with a colleague that there's really no such thing as balance. There really is balance, but there is homeostasis where we can have a level of balance, but
Mhm.
it's not going to always be perfect. But what's really cool is what you said, that you have all these wins. So if you have 8 dimensions of wellness and maybe your career isn't where you want it to be, because you have maybe high mental health or resilience, or you're working out and you're taking good care of yourself and affirming yourself when you look in the mirror that you're still doing okay, or maybe you have a really great hobby, which is part of your intellectual wellness that sustains you. Those things can be a bridge to the other dimensions of wellness, and like big dominoes that fall into place, but they can also be the opposite. When one of them's really out of whack, it can cause the other things to be out of whack. So if I didn't have a lot of well-being in my job and I got laid off, or I couldn't go back to work, and I start letting that get in my head, then my mental health struggles, etc. But something that I think when you're asking for like useful tools, one of the things that is so important for me to share with folks, that I think it's one of the primary things when it comes to wellness, is that we're kind of being sold a bill of goods that wellness is a straight line from diet and exercise to perfect body. And the fact is that those are tools to get you to a body that you want, or a biometric level, like a good cholesterol or a good sugar level. Maybe your diet is going to get you there, or your exercise is going to get you somewhere, but it's a crooked line for most of us. And so when you think about, let's say, financial wellness has a huge impact on
Oh,
people's mental well-being.
yes.
And I can tell you that when things aren't going well financially for some folks, they comfort eat. And when you comfort eat, then you're affecting your physical well-being. So that's why you have to find well-being, which is how can you adjust and respond to situations instead of react. When you react, it's you're grasping at straws, but you cannot look at it as a straight line. I want to tell you a story about a woman that I worked with. So I've had, I was always all about these dimensions of wellness. They're always listed on a pie chart, from the national organizations. Some of them have 6 dimensions. My undergraduate program had 5. I used the one model from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration that had 8. It's the same 8 that's in mine, except I arrange them differently. And I do a little defining of them differently. But with these dimensions, I always thought they were equal standing with each other. And then I started thinking there's got to be a key to this. And I started thinking it was mental well-being, but I started to shift that. So I've had different stories of people that I encountered in my corporate wellness program development where folks would contact me. So this woman, and I change all the names and I changed them in my book, Alexis, she contacted me because we had just started a nutrition program that the company paid for, and you could subscribe to it and go through it and lose weight. And she wrote me via an email, wanted to just thank me for the program because she had a goal. She wanted to go skydiving for her 30th birthday. And she said, I'm almost at my goal weight, and this program is giving me the tools. I'm going to get there because of this program. So thank you for doing it. And I'm like, I didn't pay for it. I'm so happy. I have a lot of enthusiasm. I do my job, and people I love because I have connections with all these folks. And so she said, when I started exploring going skydiving, because she has this social group and they all wanted to go skydiving, so this was her 30th birthday and that's what she was going to do. So she had this social well-being, if you will, her social group. I talked about social wellness. They're all tight. They're really good friends. Well, she wanted to go skydiving, but she started researching and found out there is a 250-pound weight restriction. You can't be over 250. Ooh. And she weighed over 250 pounds. And she felt like, she said to me, I never felt uncomfortable. I've been comfortable with my weight and my curves all my life. I've never been a slender woman. I'm comfortable like this, but it became a barrier to a social goal. So this is where I'm connecting that it's not this and this in a straight line. It's not because, the doctor told me I need to lose weight. Maybe he had already told her that. I don't know if she had gone on diets before. I don't know if she, wanted to meet somebody in the past and she thought, I got to lose weight because, he likes thinner girls, or whatever the situation is. I don't know what that was. I just know that skydiving was her goal. And her weight became a barrier for her to skydive. So she went on this diet and this exercise plan, and she got down to 250 pounds, and she skydived for her 30th birthday. And she sent me pictures. It was amazing. Well, then about 11 months, 10 or 11 months later, I was in the building that she works in. I had never met her in person. We worked for the same company, but in different parts of the city. And I was in her building on other business, and I thought, I'm going to look Alexis up. And so I went and looked her up, and standing in front of me was this woman with this mass of curly brown hair, glowing skin, huge smile, and a fitted work dress on, about 175 pounds. And I'm like, what happened? And she goes, I felt so good. I just kept going. So her motivation came from a completely unique place that God gave her, I think. She had this sense of adventure. I can tell you that I'm not going skydiving anytime soon. I have never wanted to go skydiving. That wouldn't be my motivation, but I'm motivated to stay in shape for some other reason. So we may have some similar tools that we use, but our motivation is unique to each of us. So I'm just telling you, you can't always look at the tools and think that's going to get you to your goal. You said, how does it stick? It sticks by finding out where your motivation is, those parts of your heart that really want, just like I told you, I wanted to talk that's why I wanted broadcasting. And I changed to health. And 8 years later, the organization I was working for, they got approached and said, we want to do this television show. And I got to do the television show.
Awesome.
So I feel like God planted those seeds of, I want to do TV or I want to talk in front of people, but he made it richer by taking me a completely different journey through health, made me get an education, or I took the opportunity that he gave me to get an education in that, so that now what comes out of my mouth is maybe service related and oriented toward helping people instead of just reading someone else's news. Hi, Bill. Thank you so much. Somebody had a question.
Yes.
Did have a question?
I got a few, so I'm going to go through this because this gentleman's been plastering me with questions. So I'm going to start with his first one. This is very unique. So his question for Julie is: Did you curl your hair with a Dyson hair wrap? I don't know. I'll leave that to Julie to answer. Maybe.
I love that question, but I don't know what a Dyson hair wrap is.
So So he says, here goes. He says the Dyson hair wrap, they're like a 400-pound. I guess they're like a vacuum to curl hair. So, but let's go to his next question, which I loved. Okay, so he had a question. He's asking, since mental health has been such a big subject, why do you think people are worrying about it now and not before? Mental health is not just a lockdown thing. It should have been done on a 24/7 awareness sort of level. So,
who's that?
So his name is Tommy, but that's
Tommy.
His Twitch name is Ginger Badger. So there you
Ginger
go.
Badger, is that anything related to the honey badger?
I doubt.
If anybody knows what I'm talking about, I love those.
There you go.
Honey badger, Ginger Badger. I'm with you. I mean, I can tell you that I've worked for companies before where I wanted to do some really deep mental health stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're not ready for that. Yeah, that's not what we do here. And it's because I work at an institution that is health-based that I'm able to do that for our population with the organization that I work for now. But and there have been other places that were not a health and human services or social services organization, and they just didn't want to go there. And I'm like, hey, listen, they had, I knew of somebody at the organization that had some serious depression over some instances that happened in her home. And she wanted to tell her story, and they didn't want to do it. And I understand that, but to some degree. But now I think so to answer your question, why do I think it's happening now? Because it is, I don't know for sure, but I believe that it's touching more people than it did before. It was easy to say, oh, that's not touching me, or it was, and just we didn't talk about it. But now it's really touching. I mean, I can't tell you, like within a 72-hour period, I had somebody in my home telling me that his grandfather, who was not a young man, committed suicide. And I had another person tell me that an older person in their life had committed suicide. And then there was a woman at a meeting that I was at, and they had 3 people in their lives who had committed suicide. So it is
Oh,
a horrible thing that's going on right now. And that is one of my, 3 pillars that I'm talking about in my my other professional work is
yeah.
mental health is one of them. It's primary to, it's first and foremost right now.
Yeah. So now that we kind of mentioned that, we'll see if we want to go down this way. But let's talk about what you were just mentioning with suicide, because for those who don't know, Julie has written a book, and in the book she kind of goes into a little bit about her own attempt with suicide. So, and seeing somebody who's a coach now, who's in a really good state, what were some of those things that were running through your mind that makes somebody even cross that threshold of wanting to end it all? When you see somebody like, now it's like, no way, I could never believe that was her. You
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
what were those things that were in those moments that kind of put you in that, just like you can have a mental state and be good, you all can also have a mental state and be very, very bad. What were some of those things, those toxins or whatever that were driving you into that state of mind?
First of all, I do want to preface it with this and say, yeah, that's chapter 4 in my book, where I talk about
Yes.
deciding that I wasn't going to live anymore. And I was 19. And I want to let you know that I have never talked publicly about it. Now, I wrote a book about it, so it's out there, right? I have
Yes.
friends who've read my book. My father read my book, and he, of course, went through all of that. He and my mom and my family but I've never sat down like this and had a discussion, and I appreciate the opportunity to. But I might trip a little bit because I haven't ever verbalized it.
It's okay.
So I was 19, and I had, I'm not going to lie, um, my family was a little tumultuous,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't their fault, but it was tumultuous, and I didn't know how, as a child growing up in it, to feel comfortable. And so I did grow up thinking in so many ways that I was faulty, that there was something wrong. Now, I tried to do all kinds of things. Like, I was involved. I was captain of my cheer squad. I never expected to get that. In varsity cheer in high school. I went to college. I put myself through college with minimal financial assistance from my family. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I'm not that person that everything came for me. And I think that what I want folks to know about people who are depressed and suicidal is that it doesn't look anything like I see on television. Doesn't look
Mm.
anything, because it's almost like there's some sort of prescription that they're thinking that you follow if you're going to go down that path. And I think that it's so insidious that it can touch anybody. So I am in college. I'm thriving. I'm doing a news radio show. I'm doing the news. I'm in the broadcasting. They're going to give me my own show the next, not just news, but a show the next semester. I'm dating. I have a good social life. I'm not drinking and drugging, although I did enjoy partying a bit.
That's okay.
I love my country western dancing and a good margarita. So, I mean, I had my girls and I had my social group, but I didn't feel good inside. So I think that you can look great on the outside. I wasn't trying to put up a facade. I was willing to say, I don't feel good inside. And I just didn't feel good. And, I just got to that point. One year it was bad. And then the next year it got really bad. And so I didn't have a spiritual life. I didn't grow up in a church, and I'm going to tell you, I do believe in God. I used to
Fine.
believe in spirituality. I used to believe in a higher power, but I am a bona fide God girl Christian, card carrying Christian. And I used to think I was too smart to believe in religion, and I don't. I'm not a religion person. I am definitely about relationship with God. And when I was as Ravi Zacharias, who God rest his soul, passed away this summer. If anybody doesn't know who he is, you should look him up. He's amazing. As he said, when I was on a bed of suicide, when I was really on a bed of suicide, I was praying to God. I said, just take me back and make me better. And it was surrender. What happened is I was praying all the time in my head, God, make this go away, make this go away. But when it comes to God, you have to surrender to him. That's the difference. You can't do it with your head. You have to do it with your heart. And so, yeah, I did. I wasn't an overachiever. I was a high achiever. I don't believe in overachiever for me. I'm a high achiever. I don't like that label.
Okay.
But anyway, but just because I've been not bullied, but I've been,
Yeah.
criticized for being an overachiever. But I have a lot of natural energy, and I've tried to squash it. And I'm always like this, just by the way. I've got a lot of energy.
Nothing wrong with that for me.
I finally, I literally I wasn't successful, and my mother had a family member who was at home at the time. I went and laid down on my mother's with my head on her lap. I was supposed to be going back to college after spring break, and I went and laid my head down on her lap, and I was kind of fading out because I had taken overdose, and I think I said I'm ready to die, and she was like all of a sudden freaked out and like, what? I mean, because I'm not that child. I'm not that one. And so she started calling family and said, I think there's a problem here. And so that's how, thank God, I ended up going, and, the whole stomach and pumping, and vomiting and all that. But I did go to inpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 21 days there, and I was there it was like somewhere around the 19th day that I was crying in my bed in a hospital at a psych ward, sad. And like I'm going to groups, I'm seeing a psychiatrist, I'm seeing psychologists, I've got other peers here and telling me their stories. Some had bulimia, some had different issues. And I finally gave it all up. I just finally I'm done trying anymore. But I was in a hospital and in a safe place and not doing anything for to myself. And like literally, I felt what it felt like my stomach was ripping in two. And I'm like, what in the heck is this? Is the alien going to come out in a minute? My stomach felt like it was ripping in two. And then there was just nothing but peace. And gratitude. And I never had that feeling again. So what I want to tell people who are feeling that way or feeling any way is that it gets better. It gets better. It's the valleys. It's those times when things are tough that we have got to let God help us through it, not take it away. Get through it. He doesn't promise we won't go through anything. He tells us he will take us through it. I mean, he won't take it away. He'll take us through it. And that's truly. And I didn't get a diagnosis. I see you, Roz. I did not get a diagnosis. I did have one doctor said something about reflective depression. And I want to let you know, I am a more mature woman. So they weren't throwing around a lot of the same terms that they're throwing around now. Or I don't want to say throwing around. It's not common to say bipolar. It's not common to say, I don't know, some of the other terms, but I don't have a diagnosis, and I have God. And I want you to know, I'm not talking about mental illness, because I do have friends, and I talk about this in my book. I had somebody who talked to me and did a proofread on my book, and she helped me clean up that part, because I don't want to. When somebody has mental illness, I can't speak clinically to that. I can only speak to well-being with people who suffer with emotional and mental health issues, not mental illness. Very big difference. So, and I feel for you. I feel like there's a way to find manageability with mental illness, but I don't know anything or much about that.
So Tommy is asking another question. He's like, Julie, I suffer with the top 1% of severe ADHD. I now take speed as part of my journey. How do you prepare your mind and body to make a change? When did it click for you? I guess what he's trying to find out. What was I guess the thing for you, maybe that in your sort of what you kind of just covered. I mean,
Mhm.
it was. I think you kind of covered that a little bit when you said it was finding God and believing, and again, letting Him into your heart. Letting Him into helping
Thanks.
you. Yes, right, and that's where I tell a lot of people. And here's the thing, like when you talk about these sort of um, when you talk about these sort of topics or these issues altogether, I'm glad that they at least look at it on a individual basis, because I think for a lot of people it's not always going to be the same. You did not have a lot of the same
Mm-mm.
stigmas that somebody would look at and say she is
It
clearly.
threw everybody for a loop. Threw
Yeah.
everybody for a loop. Now, I will tell you, by the way, for those who said MHA, that's Masters in Health Administration. That's not
Okay.
an
Okay.
alliance.
Okay.
So, you know, to answer, I think this was the question that Tommy had about being ADHD. One of the things that I I don't know. I don't really know. I really don't. I just feel like I've learned that I can't ask God to take away depression.
Hmm.
Well, I guess I can. There are times when let me just say, when I'm having a moment where I'm feeling really like snarky, or I'm feeling really anxious. Like, I was one day in the grocery store, and I try to be like kind, and I really do try to be that what would Jesus do person. I like I told you, it took me a long time to get there. Thank goodness I did. But I still like go back to that aggressive, hard-hitting woman that I was growing up, and fighter, kind of scrappy. I always said I was scrappy. And when I have those moments, I have literally been in the grocery store irritated with everybody who is in my way, and I literally will pull my little cart over to the side, and I will just say a prayer. God, I don't say make these people get out of my way. I
Yeah.
say, God, change my heart. I don't need to be irritated. We're all just in here shopping. Help. And like, I might not get all the
Yeah.
snarkiness that's in my body taken away, because I'm going to have those moments. But for that moment, I almost always, whenever I ask for a change of that moment's heart, or a
Hmm.
change of the feelings, I'm feeling really, really on the edge right now. I usually, I feel like I always get an immediate change, even if it's just somebody that walks by me and says something and changes my frame of mind. God sends it in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, and akin to Tommy's question, he's like, how do you find God? How do you welcome Him if you do not feel as strong as beliefs as others? And here's the thing, Tommy, it's just like anything in life. You actually have to be open to a lot of things. So if you're actually looking for Him and you're actively looking for, even if it's not God, if it's something else, you still have to be open to accepting whatever type of change, whatever type of thing that you're looking for, and allowing it to kind of come into your life. And you really have to be accepting of it. And that's what I've experienced in my own way. I went through my own spiritual journey. I studied so many different religions. I studied everything else so that I could set up my own core beliefs and my own values. And then from that point, once I've already done that, I can pretty much establish how I believe, how much faith I have, how many things that I want to go out there. But again, you have to be able to say, you know what, just like we're talking about the pillars, so setting all that stuff up,
Mhm.
all those play a vital part, whether or not you're going to allow something like God into your life to guide you into letting you find the peace or whatever the answer that you're looking for. If not
Mhm.
Him, then it's whatever else you're going to believe, whatever faith or whatever deity or whatever it is you're going to believe. Change God if you would like to something else, if that's your belief. But you have to have that sort of, you have to have that thing that, you know what, this is what I'm actually going to allow into my life. Because if you're not, it's all for naught. It's all for naught. You're just pretty much living in a circle of insanity, not letting change come into your life. And whether it is your belief system, your core values, or, your actions in life, you have to think of all these things and you have to put them into, um, in how you're going to allow yourself to be changed. You have to, or else you're going to be just existing.
So
For
I
me,
have a,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I
No,
have a
no, I'm
question for Tommy. Well, or just first, let me just say, um, spiritual wellness. Let me define what spiritual wellness
yes.
is. Spiritual wellness is knowing that is that sense of I have a higher purpose than what's me sitting here right now, that there's something greater than me, something bigger for me or greater than me. So that's where spiritual wellness is grounded. And I will tell you that I I told you I didn't grow up in a household, a spiritual household, and but I always had. I was kind of a juvenile delinquent earlier in my before I was in like up to literally early in my life. By the time I got to high school, I got to tell you, I got all the juvenile delinquent out of me, almost all of it. By the time I was 15, so I used to think that what I had was street smarts because you get that feeling, I don't trust that person, or I shouldn't do that, or I want to do this. I always thought it was street smarts. And then as I started to mature, I started to feel like it was my women's intuition or my sixth sense. And then I went on the spiritual journey, much like what you're describing, Gabe. I did. I tried Buddhism, which is really a practice. I've tried lots of different types of spiritual practices. And then I found my way to church because that's what I thought Christianity was. So I actually had never read the Bible. I didn't want anything to do with the Bible. Like I told you, I felt like I was too smart to be in that category. But I did start when I had that moment in the hospital. I believed in God. I felt like God saved me. And I did start to develop a relationship with going to church with my then I met my husband shortly after that, my boyfriend, and we dated for 5 years. We just celebrated 35 years together on Monday, 40 years together, 35 years of marriage. He's an amazing guy. But we started going to church together when we were younger, and he came from a church-going family, but he wasn't like charismatic or anything like that. But I will tell you, because he asked, one of your, I think it was Ginger Badger, asked about how did I make that shift? And I will tell you, it happened in Texas, Gabe. Um,
Oh,
part
welcome.
of my shift happened. Now I was going to church and I love God and I felt it here, but I was religious. And when I came to Texas, I was in Houston, and I went to a church that's a popular church in the world, and I went there to make fun of it. I went there because I thought it was a spectacle, not really to make fun of it because I'm a church lady, right? But
Mm-hmm.
because I thought, okay, I want to do all things Houston while I'm here. I want to run the Houston Marathon or half marathon because I was not going to run another marathon. I wanted to go to, I want to go to Astros game, I want to go to a Texans game, and I want to go to this church that everybody talks about that I saw this person on Oprah. And so I thought it was going to be funny, right? And so I went there, and I am there, and I'm immediately uncomfortable because they are praising and worshiping, and I'm like, this is not how you worship God. I'm sorry, because
Mm-hmm.
I've been to catechism and I know how you worship God, and this isn't it. So I was really freaked out. So I thought, but I really like that message. So I would go back, but I would go just for the message. And then one time I was having a particularly bad day, and I thought, I need to go for the whole thing. And I went, and I was like, I've got somebody praising and worshiping over here. And then I thought, I can't stand here because you're supposed to be reverent, right? And they're clapping. So I go up, I stand somewhere else, and I hear somebody speaking in tongues, which was not a part of this church that I thought of. So then I hear that, and I'm like, okay, I'm out. So I left. Well, I turned on the radio the other day, and that pastor was saying that a couple days later, that pastor was saying, the thing about our church is that we have people here. We have the most multi-dimensional church. I mean, multi-diversity church. We're like a mosaic, and we've got Baptists worshiping next next to Pentecostals, worshiping next to Catholics, worshiping next to Buddhists. And he went through the thing and he talked about these different countries of people worshiping together. And I was the one who walked out of that church 2 days earlier, and I thought, maybe I'm the problem here. Because I had all this judgment about what God was and what church was, and I didn't want this. So I started to learn more. I took my time. Someone had recommended that I read the Bible by reading one chapter, starting with the New Testament, because I had tried so many times before, and it is boring. You start with the Old Testament, you pick it up like a regular book, beginning to end. No, they said start with the New Testament. With Matthew, read one chapter a night or a day, and then read one Proverbs from the Old Testament for wisdom every day, and one Psalm for inspiration. That was magic for me. And I started reading it. And this is where I learned that God had everything to do with wellness, because everything I had been teaching at that point for 25 years about how to talk to each other in communication, and which is part of environmental wellness, how to treat people, how to take care of my body, how to take care of my health and my mental health, how to have a social group or my tribe, all of that, our job, which is service, and that he gives us skills and abilities. Everything I had been teaching was in the Bible. And I'm like, what? And that's when I started developing. And that's really, Tommy, that's when I made the shift to relationship with God instead of religion.
So for those who don't know, and you don't have to say it, but I'll say it. She's talking about Joel Osteen, and she's talking about the Lakewood Church. It is a huge institution down there in Houston. But again, I don't cover those sort. I mean, I don't hide those sort of things. That's again, if you're uncomfortable saying, I will say it. They can. Somebody wants to come back to me about it. That's fine. But
no, I'm not uncomfortable. I just didn't get to that answer yet. Yeah.
But I was just putting it out there for everybody who might want to inquire, because who knows? Just like you found value in it, just like you did. You again, with the thought process of I'm here to just make fun of it, talk about it, and it turns your life around when you least expect it to.
Yeah.
And that's the wonderful part of the journey. Is when you find those curves that come around from you don't even see out into the world, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is, and it changes everything, because it structurally changed just about everything that you believed in at that point, right? I mean,
yes, it did.
And that's
my joy
yes.
I've always was a positive Energizer bunny, but my joy level went skyrocketed.
Rocket, right?
So and good. And I attend a church in Dallas now, and I love going to church. But
but again, for that season and for that moment, that's exactly what you needed, and that's what's important about the journeys. It's telling you that when I tell people, right, in that moment, that is exactly what you need. This is where I tell everybody about the show, and yes, they've heard this over again. I'm going to put it to you again one more time. This is why I create these and put these out there into the world, because number one, you don't know where impact's going to come from, and when you need to hear that one thing at the right time from the right person, right? Joel Osteen is not everybody's cup of tea. There's so many pastors out there that it just do not resonate with people. But then there's that one where the voice, whether it is the divine vibe that's coming from that person that just sticks with that person and it rides with them, that is what you need. And again, even if you don't want to take religion out of it, that's fine. Take religion out of it. I'll do it like this. When you find that voice, when you find that person in your life, whether it be a podcast or video or a book that you're reading, that somebody's words, when you take that in and it resonates to the point of it changing your life, that is what is what you need. So I tell everybody all the time, impact can come from anywhere, anytime, at any point, and you don't know how it's actually going to turn around and impact your life in the way that you need it to. So when you found this, you were at the right place you were supposed to be at. You were at all the things that led up to that were for you to find that and discover it. And it's the reason why we're having this conversation at all.
Exactly.
You know?
Yep. Every piece of your journey is there. Every piece of your journey is there for a reason. But you can't do it by yourself, and you're not meant to. You have free will, right? But
Mhm.
you're meant to, like, this isn't, just to let folks know, this isn't, about whether you like Joel Osteen or not.
Yeah.
And because there's some of the comments, but
Hey,
but I'm just telling you that was for me. What was the thing about the higher power?
okay,
You talk about higher power. We complete this in the 12 step. Yeah, yeah. Yes. I mean, what is the first part of a 12-step program?
mm,
I think that you have to acknowledge that, give it all over to God, or acknowledge that there's a higher power and more than ourselves. So
yes, right. And
I
I've
love Joyce Meyer too. I love that.
yes, yes. So
She
there,
was an acquired taste for me too, by the way. My husband is like, yeah, no, I can't. But I really like her.
and again, like I said, it is what's going to hit with you and really draw that impact, because when I started my first journey, when I started my journey into enlightenment, um, I want to say I got to thank this man, and I've never had him on the show. I wish I could. I need to reach out to him at some point. But there was a gentleman named Eddie Dean, and what he did and what he does is that he goes to these recovery houses, and before, this was pre-COVID, of course, and he would go there, and he was essentially teaching all of these people who were in recovery not just a 12-step program, but he was actually teaching them what they didn't know. And what I discovered later was actually neuroplasticity. But he was teaching them in that way to kind of look at the way that their mindset was. And it was always the biggest reminder, though, that when you walked in, you saw these pictures of people on the wall that were there as those who didn't make it, right? That fell, and there was a constant reminder, and that was very eye-opening for me, and that's where I really I really stepped up as far as how I wanted to go look at not only myself, but how I help and impact people. And that was um, one of the key steps in learning my journey for myself, and how even now how I go out there and connect with people and bring individuals on to this forum to kind of share their stories. And you know what? It changes every night. But again, guys, I'm trying to broadcast to as many channels as anybody who's listening to find, again, that one impact, that one voice. Whether tonight, it could be Julie talking about religion. You go look up Joel Osteen or Joyce Myers, and you go see what they talk about.
Well, with God, because
Yeah.
it's a 4-hour read, and you'll know in the first chapter whether you want to continue or not. You'll
Yes.
know whether, like, you'll know right away. And the thing that happens for me is, commonly, people change while they're reading it. Like, I have had so many people text me, email me, stop me, and say, and it was always around page 85, like after they'd finished maybe it was the 5th chapter, they'll write me and say, I'm changing. I love this. And so I think for those who aren't sure about what they believe, this will at least help you see yourself in a new light, because that's what this journey is about. This
Yes.
self-transformation journey, that's what the book is about, is
Yes.
transforming the way, your approach to getting to the place of joy and contentment and wellness in your total life.
Oh, I love that. Love, love, love hearing that.
Thank you so much.
So, Julie, it's come to the show where this is the question I wrap up with, and it's the question I've asked every guest who comes on the show. So I'm going to fire it at you. So here it goes. So, when the book is said and done, Miss Julie Van Orden, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, and what is it that you want to be remembered for?
Um, I think truly what I would love is for folks not really to it's kind of the Maya Angelou thing. It's not what I said, but how they felt around me. It's not about me. I would really rather, I guess what I want to say is that people learn something, that they were inspired about themselves, that there was something that I said, like recently I said to a woman, well, like within the last year, I said, maybe who you're looking for, because she was praying for a husband. I said, maybe he doesn't look like what you think he looks like. And she
Ah,
called me the other day and she said, I'm engaged and your words resonated with me. He is not the Dallas businessman suit guy that I thought I was looking for. And so I think that what if somebody could just hear something and feel good about themselves in a new way and love themselves in a new way, that's all I care about.
oh,
Because that's how
absolutely.
I got here, is looking at
Yes.
myself in a new way with new eyes.
I love that. Absolutely love that. That is, gosh, that is such a great answer. And again, guys, I
Thank
always
you.
preface it by saying there is no right or wrong answer. This is just this is just a question of perspective on somebody's journey. And who knows, in 10, 20 years, it might be different. But for right now, this is what it's supposed to be. And this is where it's taking Miss Julie. So thank you, Julie, so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on the
Thanks,
show.
everybody. You all
And
were great. Thanks for the
yes, and of
questions.
course, guys, I'm going to put in the comments the website where you can also go find the book. And of course, I will put all Julie's links on social media where you want to reach out to her. Please reach out. God, man, if it is that right, if she's the right person that will help you
I'll
find what you
respond.
need, I will. Again, it's what it's supposed to be happening. So thank you again, everybody, for joining in the chat, guys. You rocked it. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for all the great questions. Tommy, Jackie, Enrique, all you guys. Jaime, thank you so much. I know you got to run. He's got a live show to do himself. But thank you guys for showing up here every night and just being such a wonderful, open, inclusive, understanding community, guys. This is what we want to
Thank
provide
you.
here and just allow a nice easy, safe space for our guests to come on here and just share their stories. And that's what's really important and vital for me. So thank you again, Julie, for taking the
Thank you
time.
for everything.
Sit tight,
Good to talk to
everybody.
you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. So sit tight, Julie. Everybody else,
Okay.
you know the drill. Um, we will be back here tomorrow evening, 7:30 Central Standard Time. Tomorrow will be episode 100. I'm taking that day for me because I'm going to do a lot of introspect and retrospect on this last season and what I've really taken out of it and what you guys have contributed to it as well. So thank you again so much. And, guys, like I say here every single night, you are the lifeblood of what I do here and why I continue to do these shows every single night. And I appreciate you so much with all the gratitude in the world. So, whew. All right, guys. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay blessed. We'll get through this together. Good night, everybody.